And we have also previously at the start we have only the classic dashboards which we were building up in Anaplan, but later on as we grow and Anaplan adds new feature, so it also added the NUX feature, which is the new user experience. So it's an new dashboards which we can build up in Anaplan, and it looks like pretty attractive than the classic dashboard. So we have in the OpEx planning, we have built it in completely on the new user experience dashboards. So after that, I have led the India team. Basically, like we have different teams. We have the on-site team and we have the offshore team. So I have led the offshore team in the OpEx planning as well. And also after that, I was doing the tax planning. So based on, it's a global project basically. Um, we are calculating the tax of the US, India, Hong Kong, and other EMEA regions. So we have built up a complete tax functionality, the users can directly come to Anaplan and input whatever the data they have in from in their source system. They can directly import it to Anaplan, and all their taxes will be calculated automatically, and if they need to do any adjustment they can do, and they can know their final taxes or the tax accounting summary of their final cost center. So apart from that, I have worked on other internal project as well, so that we can showcase it to the users, because we are building different use case based on the user requirement, so which suits their study. So we are transforming the model based on their understanding and building up the POC for them, so that if they are okay with Anaplan, then we can move ahead with the project.
Got
So
it.
that's
Got it.
a very high level
Mhm.
understanding about my project, about my overall Anaplan journey.
Got it. Got it. So are you, who are you from role perspective? Are you like a functional architect, functional consultant, technical architect, technical consultant, or techno-functional? What kind of roles have you
Um,
played, and what is your current role?
Currently, I'm working as a techno functional. We are gathering the requirement from the client, and based on the requirement, we are building how the architecture of the model will be. So we are designing the architecture and building up the model.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So so does it come any out of the box modeling, other than OpEx like CapEx or financial balance sheets or P&L statement? Does it come out of the box for financial planning, or no, you have to build everything from scratch here in Anaplan?
It usually depends what's the user requirement. So if they have requirement similar, mostly I see, if they are planning the workforce planning, okay, then the designing and the data will be mostly it will be completely different for organization to organization, but the scenarios or the logics will mostly be matched. I think you can say it, 70% logics will be matched. So we can, based on we can reuse the model, or if not,
So you
they
have
will be.
out of the box models from Anaplan, you are saying, end of the day.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, please go ahead. I'm just trying to drive and some conclusion here. How do we utilize your experience, right? So that way we can do that. Please go ahead with that demo.
Mm-hmm. So basically, I have prepared a PPT,
Okay.
overall, how Anaplan, what all stages we will be passing to have a certified model builder, and what all objects we have in Anaplan. Okay.
Okay.
So Now I see like we have firstly like the most important is the Anaplan certification, and then we have the list creation, model creation, and actions creation. We have the classic dashboard, NUX pages, and model modes and deployment, and we have the Anaplan community and Anapedia. So mostly like we will be covering, okay, these are the very high level, and we will not go in depth to each of the point, but we will cover like whatever I see like the important features we have, we will cover mostly most of them, but okay. So in our Anaplan certification journey, we have around 6 different labels of certifications. So mostly like if someone is completely new to Anaplan, then they need to like register. Like there are different programs as well ongoing, and if they want to register with complete the Anaplan certification journey with any other institution, then they can do it from like they can start it with from label one. And so label one is the very initial certification, and Anaplan usually provide okay what how they can build up the label one, and they are giving all the hints basically in the label one while completing the certification. And
Okay.
once the label one is completed, we have the label two. So label two becomes a bit difficult, and there are around 3 different sprints we need to be completed to become a label two Anaplan certified model builder. So once like the label two is completed, the Anaplan way, like we have different best practice that need to be followed while building up the model. So all comes under the Anaplan way. So Anaplan way, like there will be no questions or answer around. So it will be simply like based on what how we have built up the model in the label one and label two. So it will cover all the best practice, and we need to while building up the model, we need to uh, keep in mind like okay, this is the best principle. So we need to follow. We need to build based on these all principles, because later on how it happens basically we keep on building up the model, but later on like we have many different huge number of lists and huge number of modules being calculated in Anaplan. So it becomes very difficult to manage those objects in Anaplan. And if we are not at the start we are not like keeping all the best practice, then when the model size become huge, then we need to think okay how it can be we can optimize, and how we can modify the module. So we are in all the best practice what Anaplan suggests, and we are in uh, uh, and we are in relation, or those are related to the Anaplan practices. Okay. Then once like we have the Anaplan way certification being completed, so we will we have the other level of certification, that is the label 3. In label 3 basically uh, we there should be some experience, Anaplan real-time project experience for the candidate to complete the label 3. So it can be like one minimum one project, or having 1 year of experience in Anaplan platform. Okay, so they can do the label 3 certifications. Based on the level 3 certifications, like Anaplan will, okay, if all the best practice are being built up in the level 3, and they will like basically take up the history of the level 3 model, and if everything looks in place, then we can go ahead with the Anaplan Solution Architect certifications. So it's completely based on the level 3, like how we have built up the level 3, and we if we uh, have all the eligibility criteria for become an Anaplan solution architect. So the same like we need around minimum 1 year of experience in Anaplan, and then we can register for Anaplan solution architect. And once like we have the solution architect, then we can go ahead with the master Anaplanner. So till the solution architect, like the certifications are free of cost, but the master Anaplanner, we have a charge, like we have a huge charge. Basically, it's around $550 dollar, which we need to pay for the master Anaplanner certification. So it's a bit difficult. Like we should have experience on multiple platforms in the sense like we should have knowledge on the integration side, like how the data is moving to the Anaplan and all the functionality we have in Anaplan. And also we should be clear about the functional knowledge. So if we have all this knowledge, then we can register for the Master Anaplanner. So Master Anaplanner is the last and the highest prestigious certifications what we have in the Anaplan. So this is basically like the journey of the certifications we have in here. And so you can see like once we have the label 1, we have label 2 Anaplan way, then we at Anaplan will provide us the certified model builder certifications, then we have the label 3, then solution architect and master Anaplanner. Now coming to Anaplan, so what exactly Anaplan is? So Anaplan is an EPM tool, like enterprise uh, a tool where we usually do all the planning activities. Okay, so planning, if you go by the name itself, Anaplan, so analysis and planning. So we will be doing the planning. It can be any planning based on the requirement. Like it can be of finance planning, or it can be of sales planning, or if we have other requirement also, like there can be multiple in finance. If we go in finance part, then it can be of revenue planning, P&L planning, or any expense planning. Same like if we go to the sales, like it can be territory and quota planning. It can be of sales planning. We have compensation planning. We have ICM, incentive compensation management. So there are n number of plannings or use case which we can build up in Anaplan. So usually, but I see we like most of the organization uses Anaplan for the finance part only. But they also use, but mostly like the project what we have, so mostly are build up are for finance part. Okay, so Anaplan is basically a cloud technology. So in cloud technology, in the sense like we don't need to install any software in our local system. So we can directly like buy the space from the cloud and we can use it for our organization. Okay. So and Anaplan is like we have different competitors of Anaplan also. Like we have the Hyperion, we have SAP, we have Cognos. So these all are the major competitors of Anaplan. And as uh, time passes, like Anaplan also is upgrading their software and uh, expanding it to new feature and bringing up some new functionalities to Anaplan. So it users also think okay, and it is basically like very user friendly, what you can say, like how the Microsoft Excel is being defined. So there are some logic change, but the look and feel is mostly the same to the Microsoft Excel. Okay, so if the I see like mostly like previously the planning are being done in Microsoft Excel. Okay, so if the user knows Microsoft Excel, then he can work on Anaplan, and because the look and feel will be mostly same, but the logics like how we are building up the the Anaplan model, it will vary. It will not be like same what we have in Microsoft Excel, like all the logics being applied. The same will be applied to Anaplan. That
Okay.
will vary, but the look and feel will be mostly same.
What is the
Uh,
database underlying? Does it have a database like SBase, Hyperion SBase?
Anaplan itself is a database. Like we are providing a space for the user, like to store all the data, everything in Anaplan platform
You call
itself.
that as a
And
workspace?
yeah, right, right.
And then within that, you can create multi-dimensional cubes in it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, what do you call here? If you, what is the equivalent terminology here for a cube in Anaplan Workspace?
So basically, like how we are building up the model. So Anaplan is multi-dimensionality, what we can say. Okay, so there are multiple, uh, in the sense like for a very layman user. Okay, so if we want to understand it to user, like what Anaplan platform is, so uh, we have multi-dimensional, like in Excel, if you see, like we can do the planning based on rows and column. So it becomes very difficult, like if we want to plan based on different dimensions. Okay, so in Anaplan, like we have multi-dimensionality. So they are like, if it's 2 dimension, then we can call it as uh, 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 dimensionality we have in cube, it will be 2. Okay, and if it's 3 dimensions, so there will be 3 dimension in the cube. So as the dimension increases, so the number of, like how we set up it in the cube, it will vary. Okay, like if it's 4 dimension, 5 dimension, 6, so we can take it n number of dimension. But the problem will be like it becomes very difficult, like if we are taking more number of dimensions, and we have limited number of size also in Anaplan. Okay, so we have around like 130 gigabyte of space which Anaplan provide to us, but we for a workspace, but we can take n number of. It's not restricted to a particular tenant. So suppose if I'm buying the space from the Anaplan, so firstly, like it vary, like based on my requirement, it can vary. I can buy 20 gigabyte or 30 gigabyte. It depends. But as my model, number of model being built up in the workspace and the size of the model increases, so I need to I need to buy more space from Anaplan. And the highest for a workspace is 130 gigabyte. But there can be n number of workspace in a tenant. Okay, so if my project if my project goes over 130 gigabyte, then I will be buying more space and it will be assigned to another workspace under the same tenant. um okay, so basically, like for building up the model. Okay, so we need a workspace, and workspace is the starting point for the model development. And we can build n number of models in a workspace, so there is no restriction like how many models we are building up in a workspace. So based on the user, like there can be a model. So usually, like who will be building up the model, we call them as model builders. Okay, so for the model builders, like we have different levels of access, what we say, what we call, and we are providing them the model access and also the workspace admin access. So workspace admin access, in the sense, it suggests like they can build up or change any structural data in Anaplan model. Okay, and they have access to, like they can do anything in that particular model if they have access for as workspace admin.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and
For purpose of this training, are you going to give us do you have a demo instance for us to practice exercises?
currently I don't have, but later on, like I can provide you some space where you can build up you can do some training activity or build up the model.
Okay, so you're going to give us some exercises, right, for as part of the training?
Yeah, that I will give.
Okay, okay. Please go ahead.
So, like as I already suggested, like Anaplan, so we are there can be multiple tenant. Okay, like based on the organization, so there will be a tenant for an organization. It depends, like based on their entity, they can buy the space from Anaplan. And if, and also like if suppose they use
So
the
for our training, do we have to go buy this workspace from Anaplan, or will you be providing that for the training duration for us?
mm, If you have like access for this workspace, then it's well and good. But if you don't, then I can provide you some space where you can build up the model, like, and you can work on all the basic functionality. And I think that will be mm, good. Like if
Okay.
you have the workspace, then I think
No,
it
we
will
don't
be
have
okay.
it. We don't have it because this is something we are trying to learn Anaplan, so we do not have it. So we are expecting that you will provide us a training instance where we can whatever you're going to teach us, and we are hoping you will have some exercises planned for us, um, and we will be doing those exercises in that your training instance. That's our expectation.
Got you. Okay, sure. Let me have a look of it. So how
Because
many?
if you just teach, right, what is the point if you don't practice it, right?
Right, I got you. Okay, sure. Let me have a look of it. And so, how many users will be accessing Anaplan? Is there any number?
As of now,
Rough?
two or three. As of now, two or three. We are interested to learn, depending on your session. So after your session, this demo instance, we are going to talk internally and see how it goes. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're satisfied, then we might ask one or two of our friends also to join it. So right now, assume that it's two or three.
Got you. Okay, sure. Let me have a look of it, and if I can, then I will provide the access then.
Already,
And
yeah, let's move on. Yeah.
so basically, like we have around 130 gigabyte of space, which
Hmm.
Anaplan is providing in each of the workspace. So we call them as standard workspace, but recently, like as the a number of data increases, and so based on the data increase, there are also like the size of the model what we have currently. So that is also like not sufficient for the to accumulate a single model in that workspace. So sometimes it goes over 130 gigabyte. So Anaplan launched the hyper model. So in hyper model, they are
Hmm.
providing around 720 gigabyte of space, but the problem will be like if it's in production state, then it's fine, well and good. But if it's in building state and we have changed the workspace to hyper model, then it becomes very difficult to do the development activities in hyper model, because like it will be, if suppose there is any issues or error being recognized while building up the logic. Okay, so it will take around, like based on the model size, it the time of the time will varies, and to generate the error, so we need to wait for 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute. It varies like how much the model size is currently. Okay, so the initially we'll be going with the standard workspace, which is 130 gigabyte. But if we have huge requirement and number of data is huge, then we may go by hyper model.
Got
So,
it. Got
so workspace is the initial point, like where uh, we should have access for to build up all the models in Anaplan. Then we have like once we have the workspace access, so we can easily go ahead and create more n number of models in the workspace. Once like the model is created, so we should be already in place, like how the data, what will be the data source of Anaplan, and from where the data will be coming to us in Anaplan. Okay, so once we have all the knowledge, okay, so this will be the source, and from here, like we will be uploading or importing all the data to Anaplan. Then we will be creating different objects in Anaplan. So we have around we have different objects in Anaplan to perform all the calculations, and to generate all the reports or dashboards what we have in Anaplan. So basically, we see like list is the initial part where you need to create the list in Anaplan. So without list, like you cannot go ahead and do uh, all the model building activities. So list is the pillar what you need to have in Anaplan. Okay, so what is exactly a list? Um, So lists are group of related items such as people in a department, product on a shopping list, or the region comprising a geographic area. So lists are also classified as dimension in Anaplan. So what we call like Anaplan as a multi-dimensionality tool. So list act as a dimension in Anaplan. Okay, so if you are using a single list for building up the module, then it will be a single dimensionality module. But if you are using multiple list, okay, while doing all the calculation, then it will be classified as multidimensionality. Okay, so it's all based on like how many numbers of lists you are using in the module. So if you are using suppose four list in the module, then it will be four dimensionality module what you have. So we have different types of lists based on the requirement. We have classified it as different types. So um, so the first is basically like the flat list. Okay, we have the flat list, we have the simple list, we have composite, we have parallel, numbered, and list subset. So based on like how we want to import the data and how the flow of the list will be. So based on that, like we will categorize, okay, if this list need to be a flat list or a simple list or a hierarchical list, it will vary. Okay, so based on that, based on the requirement, we will be creating, okay, and we will be defining what list need to be created. The list will be same, but how we are importing the data to the list, that will define or categorize, okay, this list belongs to the flat list or simple list in the sense. Okay, so
Okay.
flat list are basically like a group of items with no hierarchy, like there is no parent being defined and there is no hierarchy being maintained. Like suppose like let's take an example. We are importing the region data, okay, and it the region don't have any child or they don't have any parent, then the region list will be categorized as a flat list for to us. Okay, so flat list can contains as many or few items as required. So and we have like other category as well, a simple list. So simple list contains a hierarchy, a parent child relationship. They can contain multiple levels of hierarchy. So it varies basically like how many numbers of hierarchical list we have. So if it's like more than one hierarchy parent child relation being maintained in the list, then it will be called as a hierarchical list. Okay, suppose we have two different labels, like we have the region and we have the country. If you are importing the data to both of the list, and if country is the child of the parent child of the region list, then it will be categorized as a hierarchical list and it will come under hierarchical list. So we have the composite list as well. Like in the composite list, uh, we know, like suppose let's take an example. We have 10 products, okay, and we have 10 different countries, and we know like all the product will not be under a single country. Okay, so a single country can have one product, two product, or maximum of three products, suppose. Okay, so if we are demonstrating it by country, like 10 countries and by 10 product, then the size will increase. Okay, like so the cell count what we have in Anaplan, and the cell will be increased, and based on the cell count, the size of the model will increase. So let's take if the model is 10 gigabyte. Okay, let's take an example. So if the model size is 10 gigabyte and we are demonstrating it by everything like the 10 product and 10 country, then the size may have like for that particular model, the size is of 1 gigabyte. Then it will increase the size of the model from 10 to 11 gigabyte. But if you're creating a composite list, like if we know like all the product will not belong to a single country. So it varies. So if a single country has only two product, and so what we will do, we will create a composite list instead of dimensioning it by 10 country and 10 product. Now we will be dimensioning it by uh, under a single country only two product will be there. So earlier, like if the size is expanding it to 11 gigabyte, then there may be a case like if we are going with the composite list, the size will be around 10.2 gigabyte or 10.3 gigabyte. So it help us to reduce the size of the model and also go by the best practice of Anaplan.
Okay.
Mm,
Does
apart from that,
Workspace come with any default lists like time, calendar, anything like that?
yeah, we have we have a single list, a single default list which is being created in at the new model. So it's the organization list, but everything else will be empty. Like we need to define at what
Mm.
planning calendar we want to do the planning. So we need to define all the time. So all
Okay.
based on our requirement, for how many calendar years we need to do the plan, and if we need any versions, like versions, you can say it as like if we have any actual data in hand, and if based on the actual data we want to do the forecast. So we need to set up those as before the list, but it's
Okay.
all based on the requirement, like how we want to
Yeah.
do the planning.
Yeah.
Mm, Now we have the list. In the list creation we have subsets. So subset are a small group of members under a list. Okay, so it can be like, suppose if we have 100 items in a list, okay, and we know like uh, all the 100 items doesn't belong to a group, only 50 belong to a group, then we will categorize those 50 group in a subset, and the subset will also act as a dimension, mm, uh, uh, while doing all the calculation. Okay, and we have the numbered list. So numbered list are basically like if there can be a chance like we have duplicate data in place, then if we want to import those duplicate data, then we will be going by the numbered list.
Okay.
And we have different features like in the list, like we have the selective access and we have the production data. So selective access, like we know, like we need to restrict the user access based on their working, like on which region or country they need access to. So we can define, okay, it based on the selective access, and we have the production data. So it varies, like it's an earlier case, like how we are defining the model. So based on that, like we will, if we need to decide if we need to provide the production data access to the list or not.
Okay. Okay.
Then we have, like once the list are being created, so we need to go by the module. So module are like where you will build up all the logics and all the calculation and all the output will be generated in the module itself. So module, you can say, if list are the pillar, then module will be the like um who stand on that particular pillar. Okay, so modules are powerful and flexible with many features that enable you to solve common but complex
So
business
is
problems.
under the model, can I assume this module is nothing but a cube in Hyperion? Or is it
Yeah, yes, right. You can because the modules will be configured by the multi-dimensionality, like how many dimensions we need to do the planning. So
for
all
that,
the
right?
dimension will be, or cube idea, what you're saying, like it will be configured in the module.
Module. Okay, okay. Yeah. But in Hyperion, we have only ASO, BSO, but at least here you have four modules. So that's what I'm trying to understand. It's good. One is
Mhm.
input module, one is
Yeah, it
uh,
depends like how we are, what's the purpose or what's the
mm,
necessity of that module.
mm,
We are categorizing it based on four different
mm.
types, basically. Suppose if
So
it's
when you
an
load the data, when the input module, when you capture the data in it, does the rules will fire in it when you do that, or no? I mean, is there, they have to be, once you calculate the data, then that will go into output module. How does that work here?
So basically, like everything is being calculated. Like we would be like in the output module, we should be having the logics, okay?
Mm,
Been for the data to flow from input to the output module. And so if we have the all the logics already being placed, then whatever changes we are doing in the input module, then it will
mm.
be reflected in the output module. Like there will be no
So
user interaction.
are you saying that in order to see, normally input module is basically to bring the data, and based on that you will apply some mapping, and then based on the mapping you will fire some rules, and then you get output. So this, so do we have to create these 4 modules? Is that a necessary, I mean, to see the desired data? See, no company, for every company you have to go through this mappings, you need to calculate you need to fire some rules to calculate the values, and then only we'll
Mhm.
get this reporting data outside. So are you saying these 4 are compulsory for any implementation? This thing?
It's not actually compulsory, but it's the one of the best practice. Like if suppose if we don't have all these module
Mm,
in place, okay, then it
mm,
becomes like at the initial stage it will be easy. Like we can easily recognize, okay, which module,
mm,
what's the purpose of this module, and if we have those mapping already in place, if in that particular module or not. But when we have, as the number of module increases, and based on that the size of model will also increase, then it becomes very difficult. Okay, what is the purpose of this model if we don't have like suppose if we are combining all the input module and output module, then we cannot like segregate, okay, the data is coming from this module. And if we have like suppose if it's a multi-dimensionality, so in the output module for sure, like the data will be aggregated, or it will be have multi-dimensionality. Like it can be 2, 3, 4 based on the requirement. Okay, but in input model usually like we have a single or a two-dimensionality data what user is entering, and we are aggregating and aggregating the data to pass it to the output module. So if we are like combining everything, then you can say like we need to create a separate module like based on the similar functionality every time when we have a similar requirement. Because if we are building it in directly in the output module, then and if we want the data in some other output module, then their dimensionality can be different. Okay, so if their dimensionality is different, then it becomes very difficult like to uh, bring the data from that particular output module who has a different dimensionality to a output module who has a different dimensionality. Okay, so it becomes easy like if we separate the module based on their uses or based on their purpose, and we can easily bring the data if it's in the output, if it's in the input module rather than having it in the output module. So
mm,
it will like mm, how we are calculating and bringing up the data to different other modules like calculation or output module. So it becomes easy for the model builder also, and also help us in the performance of the Anaplan model. Okay, so if everything is in place in a single module, then the performance will also take a hit when we are like when the end user is uh, synchronizing the dashboards, or end user is using the dashboard if everything is in the single module. Because let's take like there are 100 different columns what we have created in a single module. Okay, then it will be and the user only want 10 columns need to work on it. So it will unnecessarily um, uh, perform the logic or perform the backend operation for all those 100 line item to bring the data for those 10 line columns. Okay, so it help us like if we we keep only those 10 columns which we are publishing or we are showcasing it to the end user, rather than have it all those 100 columns in a single module. Okay. Okay, then
Okay.
so we
What is
have
standard mode, blueprint mode?
it is basically like yeah, I will come to this. So basically, like we have 4 different modules. Like we have input module, system module, driver module, and output module. So based on the purpose, like what's the module, how we will be using the module. So we are separating uh, the module, and we are only keeping those columns in that particular module, which is like for input purpose or which is for system purpose, like storing all the master data, those related item. And driver models is basically like all where we will be doing uh, all the calculations basically, or the logic building will be happening in that particular module. So those are related to the driver module. And output module are basically like we can bring the data from the other model, like it can be system module or input module or driver module, and we will be simply like referring the other modules to bring the data to the output module. So our main aim will be like we will not be writing all the complex formula in the output module, because the performance will take a hit. So instead of writing all the complex formula, what we will be doing, we will be building or writing it in the driver module basically, and from driver module we'll be bringing the data to the output module. So the performance will doesn't take a hit. Okay. Then once like we have created all these set of models, like we have different modes of model basically, like where we can do any structural change, or we can build up the log, write any formulas. So we have 2 different modes basically, like the standard mode where user can see the real-time data. Okay. And the blueprint mode is basically, suppose if they want to add new columns, or if they want to change the format of those column, or if they want to change the dimensionality of the module, they can do all the structural changes in the blueprint mode. And all the data activities or viewing of data will be performing in the standard mode. Okay. So standard mode is basically used to input data, view data, and pivot or filter the dimensions. But the blueprint mode is used to create new line items. So line item are usually, like you can say, as columns basically. It's similar to the
Mhm,
columns,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
and assign
But
formula.
blueprint mode, is it just for temporary, like a sandbox kind of thing, or no? Is it?
No, it's being assigned to like the module itself. It's not
Okay.
temporary, like because
Mhm,
there can be a chance like we need to add new columns, or we want to change the. Now suppose the module is 2-dimensionality, okay, and we want to make it 4-dimensionality. Then we can go to the blueprint mode and simply change the dimensionality from 2 to 4.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Okay. So without disturbing the standard mode one module.
eh, yeah, like
So
whatever
can I
changes we
create
are.
a blueprint mode based on the standard mode or no?
No, it's like all are all these two are interrelated basically. Like whatever changes we are doing in the blueprint mode, like
Mm,
suppose now we have changed from 2-dimensionality to the 4-dimensionality. Okay, so it will
mm.
also be reflected in the standard mode, because in the
Okay.
standard mode the data will refer to those dimensions. Okay, like
Mm,
previously it was referring to only 2 dimension, but now it will refer to the 4 dimensions.
mm.
So the structural
So
change will be
the
done in the
module
blueprint.
mode, when I create a module, that time itself I should tell what is that mode that I want that module to be.
No. By default, like it will have both the modes in place.
Oh, by default it will have both the modes. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Got it. That's what my understanding was, because else what is the point giving blueprint mode, right?
No. By default, Anaplan will provide both these modes. So you simply need to toggle between which mode. Like if you want to do any structural change, you can toggle to the blueprint mode. And if you want to view the data, like how the data or logics are working, then you can toggle it to the standard mode.
Got it.
Okay, then after that, like we have different actions like so how the data will be coming to Anaplan, like there will be some import process need to be done, or if we want to move the data from Anaplan to some other system, there will be some export actions or process need to be taken care of. So we have those functionality also in Anaplan basically. So if you want to bring data to Anaplan, then we will be using like we will be performing some import actions to the list or to the module. So it can be like a CSV file or a TXT file. So Anaplan uses like these two extension basically like .csv or .txt. But if you want to integrate with some other system, then it's possible. But if you are using it on the manual purpose, like if you have the file and manually importing the or uploading the data to Anaplan, you can the file format should be .csv or .txt. So, so actions are basically like enabled to automate routine tasks such as process, import, export, and other actions. To upload a file to Anaplan or export from Anaplan requires an action to trigger. Um, so we have different actions basically like we have the import action, we have the export action, and we have the process. So basically like this import and export actions are important to us, and process is like combining multiple import actions in a single platform. Okay. So based on the uses like how the import action will be um, uh, used, so we can combine different import actions in a single process.
Okay.
So import action basically, this action is usually used when user have to import external data to Anaplan from CSV file or from TXT file. Okay. And similarly, if we want to move the data from Anaplan to some other system, we can export the data like it can be a CSV, TXT, or PDF format. So we have other options as well. So we can export the data from Anaplan to some other system. And process is basically processes is a combination of more than one import actions. To simplify the effort of triggering every action one by one, similar action can accumulate in a process to trigger one. Suppose if we have 5 import actions, okay, and so user will not be like going and running all those 5 import actions. So what user will do, like we will combine